Welcome to Tabletop Gaming Guild. Today we'll be looking at Ark Nova, designed by Matthias Wig and published by Fearland. In Ark Nova, you can be building your zoo, trying to get animals from different continents and different species, basically building up a diversity of animals to increase the appeal of your zoo and increase tickets, sales, and get income. But then you're using this income to hopefully fund conservation projects and help save animals. And the core of this game is balancing those two. So conservation is really the main point of the game, but you can't do that without some sort of income. And that's the basic concept of the game. So let's go down and look at it in a little bit more detail. You start the game with a hand of 8 cards that is a mix of animals, conservation projects, and sponsors. And of these 8 cards, you will have to choose 4 of them to keep. You will also start with 2 endgame scoring cards for a secret objective. You can keep both for now, but before the end of the game, you'll have to discard one of them. You get 1 action per turn, which is done by playing one of these cards, and the strength of the card is determined by the position on the board, and when you use it, it slides down to the lowest strength. The animal card always starts in the first position, and the position determines how many animals you can play. So if you're in the 5th position, you can play 2 animals. In the top left, you have the minimum size of open enclosure that is required for this animal, and then below that you have the cost to play it. Some animals like this alpaca can be placed in special enclosures. This one can be put in a petting zoo. There's a separate action for conservation projects and sponsors, but each animal card is going to have a unique effect when you play them. And there's no shortage of cards you can play. The build action allows you to build an enclosure equal to or smaller than the position the card is on your track. As the game continues, you can continue to build more enclosures. However, you cannot cover rocks or lakes. When you put out a new animal, you will flip an enclosure that equals the requirements for that animal. Sponsor action allows you to play sponsor cards or advance on the break track. Getting to the end of the break track triggers income. Association allows you to put a worker on the association board that can give you influence, affiliate zoos to make certain animals cheaper, partner with universities, or fund conservation projects that really push up your conservation score. Finally, you have the cards action that pushes forward the break track and allows you to draw more cards into your hand. If you don't want to take any of these actions, you can always move a card from any spot down to the one spot to take tokens equal to the spot it was originally started in, and these tokens increase the power for future actions. As the game progresses, you'll push up the appeal track to increase your income, and on the opposite side of the board, you'll push up on the conservation track. When those 2 tracks meet, that triggers the end game and everybody gets 1 more turn. Well, now that you have a general idea of how this game is played, let's talk in more detail about my impressions of this game. Now, this is a game that's often compared to Terraforming Mars, as are many games of this weight. But in this case, I feel it's a fairly apt comparison. It does have a lot of the same feel in that it's heavily card driven, it's heavy combo driven, definitely has the same weight and the same feel of the cards are important, the cards are being used to manipulate the board, but the board state isn't terribly important compared to what you're doing with the cards. But some of the things I really like about this game, one of them is the 2 scoring tracks. So you have the appeal track that you're going one direction and the conservation track that you're going the opposite directions. And the conservation tracks, well, it doesn't necessarily help you in the short term because you're not getting any income, unlike the appeal. It's definitely bigger jumps along the track. The appeal helps you, get to the point where you can start doing conservation, but the conservation is where you're really going to get a lot of points. And the end result of that is, because the game end is triggered when those 2 trackers meet, it means there's very small scoring, and it's very easy to count your score. All you have to do is look at where you're sitting on the conservation track relative to the appeal track, and then subtract that number from your actual appeal. And you generally get a number from 10 to 20, occasionally in the negatives. So other things I really like about this game, the card art is very consistent. It's mostly pictures, but it's like slightly Photoshop pictures to look more like art as opposed to just straight clip art. The iconography is very clear. It's very easy to figure out most things in this game. There's a couple times that we had questions, but they were pretty minor. I also do really like the card mechanic of your position of the card determines the strength of the card, and then once you've used that card, it's devalued for a period of time, and then the longer it is between the use of that same card, the higher that value is going to get again. Which is cool. It forces you to plan, because you have to figure out, okay, I want to do this card, but it's not strong enough. If I do this card first, I can manipulate the positioning of the cards and eventually get that card I really want to be doing up to strength. I also really like the break mechanic. So throughout the game, various actions you are going to do is going to move this coffee cup down the track, and when it gets to the end of the track, you do some board maintenance, and then you do income so that you have money for the next round. It makes everything seem a little faster, because you may wanting to hold off on the breaks so that you can spend all your money and take advantage of the fact that nobody else has too much money right now, where somebody else is hurting for money and trying to push it forward. So it gives that sense of pacing and urgency without actually having to enforce too many penalties for, failing to push it forward or pushing it forward too fast. The other big thing is this huge deck of cards, which is a positive and a negative, same as in Terraforming Mars. There are so many cards in here. It does give you all sorts of things you can do in your game, but it does make it hard to plan a specific strategy, because you don't know if you'll ever see the type of card you're looking for. So you really can only plan based on the cards you currently have and say, okay, I have these two right now that kind of combo. Let's work with that and pick which cards I want to keep later based on what helps further that combos that I've already got started. While it can be frustrating for some people, it does limit the amount of future planning, because most of your future planning is going to be spent managing these cards. And I think if you had combo planning on top of that, you would definitely have more AP, which you can definitely see happening a lot more in Terraforming Mars. Perhaps it's not fair to compare the two, but I couldn't really get away from seeing the similarities in the two, and overall, I enjoyed this more. Now, to be fair, it's hard to tell how much of that is just because this is the new game. In many ways, I like this very equally, and I think in a year or two from now, if I look at it again, I think they'll be fairly interchangeable. But that's my general opinion of Ark Nova. Hope you enjoyed the video. Catch us again on Tabletop Gaming Guild. Thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to check us out on other social media such as Instagram and Facebook. And don't forget to like and subscribe.